again. Good to be with you. Bill Pfeiffer speaking from Marysfield. Remember the subscribe and like buttons. They really are a help for us. Always listen to these podcasts, if you will, with your head. Again, I've often encouraged, there's only 12 inches between your head and heart, but if you allow your head to be in control, your heart doesn't have the ability to bring love along with it. The Russian monks and holy people are constantly saying the big thing in prayer is to stand before God with your head, intellect, thinking, thoughts, reflection. They get in the way. With your head and your heart, we open up to love and allow God to touch that heart at the deepest and richest of levels. I have a section in the scriptures that I just love. I'm not sure where it is at the present moment, but it says, on one occasion, Jesus spoke thus, Lord, Father, God of heaven and earth, to you I give praise. For what you have hidden from the learned and the clever, you have revealed to the merest children. Our learning, our intellect, our thinking, our PhDs, our masters, and so all of the initials after our names keep pushing us around with our pride, and it doesn't really help. You know, when you have initials behind your name, you think you have some kind of power and control, and that isn't always the case. You know, it's in humility that the victory is won. So, we have to be careful about that. It isn't to the learned and the clever, but to the merest children, to the little children that the Lord has revealed himself. And so unless you become like a little child, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. And they're really good words. And we need to kind of adopt and accept them and be able to do the things we need to do. I found in my files on Teresa of Lisieux, in Ronald Knox's autobiography on page 248, he says this about her. Several months before Teresa died, she wrote, as you know, dear mother, she's speaking of her superior in the religious order, as you know, dear mother, I've always wished that I could be a saint. But whenever I compared myself to the saints, there was always this unfortunate difference. They were like great mountains hiding their heads in the clouds, and I was only an insignificant grain of sand trodden down by all who passed by. However, I wasn't going to be discouraged. I said to myself, God wouldn't inspire us with ambitions that can't be realized. Very good sense, huh? Obviously, there's nothing great to be made of me, so it must be possible for me to aspire to sanctity in spite of my insignificance. I've got to take myself just as I am with all my imperfections, but somehow I shall have to find out a little way all of my own, which will be a direct shortcut to heaven. Can't I find an elevator which will take me up to Jesus, since I'm not big enough to climb the steep stairway of perfection? She asks herself, So I looked in the Bible for some hint about the lift I wanted, and I came across the passage where eternal wisdom says, Is anyone simple as this little child, then let him come to me. To that wisdom I went. It seemed as if I was on the right track. What did God undertake to do for the childlike soul that responded to his invitation? I read on, and this is what I found. I will console you like a mother caressing her son. You shall be like children carried at the breast, fondled on her mother's lap. Never were words so touching. Never was such music to rejoice my heart. I could, after all, be lifted up to heaven in the arms of Jesus. And if that was to happen, there was no need for me to grow bigger. On the contrary, I must be as small as ever, smaller than ever. Another little section on Teresa. I just have to share the two together. When Teresa was on her deathbed, her sister Pauline asked her to explain what she meant by remaining a little child before God. Teresa responded, It is to recognize our nothingness, to expect everything from God as a little child expects everything from its father. It is to be disquieted about nothing. having no other occupation but to gather the flowers of love and sacrifice, and of offering them to God in order to please Him. To be little is not attributing to oneself the virtues that one practices, believing oneself capable of anything, but to recognize that God places this treasure in the hands of His little child to be used when necessary. But it remains always God's treasure. Finally, it is not to become discouraged over one's faults, for children fall often, but they are too little to hurt themselves very much. Beautiful words, probably from The Story of a Soul. I've read it a couple of times. It's a book that has been read either more or just about as more number 2 book as the Bible in the 20th century. Marvelous, The Story of a Soul by Teresa of Lisieux. So happiness tomorrow always begins by doing the truth. And the truth in our relationship with each other and God is to be like children, to be simple, childlike, humble, easy to deal with. And the Lord really blesses that in ourselves and in our relationship with other. Teresa of Lisieux is the world's most famous example. So what God has hidden from the learned and clever, He reveals to the merest children. So children we shall be. Good to be with you. God bless.